Welcome to the Clean Connection Travel Talks podcast, where travel isn't just a topic, it's a conversation. Hosted by Sean Kling, each episode takes you beyond the postcards and into the real highs, lows, and unforgettable moments from life on the road. You'll hear from fellow travelers, industry pros, and digital nomads who share their best tips, budget tricks, and stories that make you want to pack your bags right away. Whether you're a casual weekend explorer or living life out of a suitcase, Clean Connection brings the travel world to life, one incredible journey at a time.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Clean Connection. Glad to have you back. And today we have a YouTube sensation. I'm going to tell you what, I am a personal fan of this guy. I watch every episode on Wednesdays when he puts them out. Like some people go to church, I watch Sidetrack Adventurers. I mean, it's great. And we have Steve today from Sidetrack Adventurers with us, and it is quite an honor to have you here, Steve. Thanks for being on the show.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I just can't wait to delve into this. There's so much I want to talk to you about. And I guess first things first, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and where you're at and what you do?
Yeah, I was born and raised here in San Diego. Aside from 4 years I spent in the Army, I've lived here all my life. I guess a little over 5 years ago now, I bought a drone. I really wanted something to do with with the drone. I have had a drone, but didn't know what to do with it. So I thought, oh, you know what? Why don't I put some footage on YouTube? And originally my idea was just to fly the drone around and put drone video on YouTube. But after watching some other YouTube channels, I said, oh, I could do that. I know some cool places that I can go and check out. And it kind of just morphed from me wanting to put drone footage up to going around to kind of forgotten or lesser known places. And I guess more people than I thought were interested in those places because it's kind of gotten bigger than I ever expected.
I'll tell you what, I mean, your shows are just have such a neat dynamic. I know that most of the time you're not on the camera, you do a mostly voiceover, and you have made mention in your show that it's kind of like a family affair too. Like your wife and your child go with you and such. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, they're always out there. Well, if my son can get out of it, he will. If like he could have the grandparents take him, because he's not, at 12 years old, he's not as interested in some of the stuff yet that we're interested in. But he's there most of the time. My wife's always there. They don't like to be on camera so much, but they're always out there.
You spent a lot of time behind the wheel. I can't imagine how many miles you're putting on. I mean, like one second I'm seeing you in Arizona, the next second I'm seeing you in Northern California.
Yeah. I bought a new car in 2023, and that car has over 50,000 miles on it already.
Wow. Yeah. So you said that, you were in the Army. You did a little time in the Army. You care to elaborate a little on that, or?
Yeah, I was in the infantry at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, 82nd Airborne. I was in the 1st Battalion, 504th Parachute Infantry.
Wow. And is that what got your love of history, or did it prior to you being in the service?
Yeah, definitely prior to me being in the service. My dad was always big into history, and he also loved to travel. We would go on a road trip or some sort of travel every summer growing up. And I mean, we drove across the country. I went to all 50 states by the time I was in middle school. And so I think that is really what gave me that love of history. As far as forgotten and abandoned places, that does kind of trace back to the Army a little bit. When I was at Fort Bragg, one time we were out doing training kind of out in the middle of Fort Bragg, in the middle of nowhere, and we came across a monument for a Civil War battle. And I was like, what the heck is this doing out? It's just out in the middle of nowhere, no roads going out to it. It's just out there. And I was thinking, wow, I can't believe this is out here. Like, nobody, who knows about this? Who went to the effort of putting this out here? And there's got to be things like this all over the place. And so I've always kind of had a fascination with that since then.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up out. We were talking a little bit before the show. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, and in Bucks County, which, if you're familiar with Philadelphia area, you have Philadelphia here and Allentown here. Bucks County was right in the middle, and you couldn't walk out your front door without hitting something historical. Valley Forge, the Liberty Bell, Gettysburg was 2 hours away. So if you grew up in Eastern Pennsylvania, you definitely spent a lot of time at cool little places that were historical. Some of them made huge impacts, but then you also had these little nuances of history that nobody ever knew. And that's the part that always struck a chord with me. And that's what I like about your show, is that you're not going to generally the big name historical places. You're finding these little off the beaten path places. But out west, I would imagine it's a little bit harder than, say, somewhere that was in the 13 colonies that has early American history. Like, where do you find your your historical locations, your interesting spots?
A lot of it is just kind of searching through Google Maps, reading a lot of books, and just I'll read a book and I'll be like, okay, now where did that happen at? And, just try to pinpoint the location. We live in an age where, I mean, there's so much information on the internet where, pretty much nothing I find is undiscovered, by somebody else before. I mean, somebody's been everywhere at this point. I mean, you can go to the bottom of the ocean and people have been down there. So there's information out there on most places, but a lot of it is there's only a little bit of information, and you kind of have to do a really deep dive. I'll go through old newspapers, stuff like that, to try to find out what actually happened there, or if there's more information that it's not out there that I can share.
So you do most of your own research and stuff like that. It's interesting. So you're are you like, outside of your wife helping you out on set and stuff, or are you like basically a one-man team?
Yep. Yep.
Wow. So you research, shoot, edit, you do everything yourself.
Yes.
Wow. That's and the quality of your videos is it's really good. It's really good.
Thank
Do you ever find that when you go to some of these places that the people are kind of like welcoming to you? Do they recognize you from your show, or do you ever like call ahead to get access and they're happy the YouTuber is out there doing what they do?
I've never called ahead on anything. More and more recently, yeah, I do get recognized. And there are some occasions where people are pretty excited. They're like, oh, yeah, because I don't know how much of a boost these places get from showing up on a YouTube channel, but I think some people do think they will have a boost from it and get kind of excited that we're out there.
I think one of the most interesting locations that you went to on one of your shows was when you went to the corners of California and you went to the middle of the lake and you're on the boat and you're out there, and I could tell you were cold. I could tell the water was splashing. I just thought that was the neatest thing.
Yeah, that one, I actually had planned to film something else that day. We were at Lake Tahoe the day before, and our plan was to go out there that first day, but the weather was so bad. And I mean, it was the middle of August when we were filming that, I think. The weather was so cold and bad, they weren't allowing any boats to go out on the lake. And I was like, oh man, we're not going to be able to film this. I was trying to think of how we would do it. And I said, well, nobody really cares if we go out on the lake. But I really wanted to go out there and get to the exact corner. And so I started calling a bunch of boat companies, and they're like, no, there's no way we're going to. Well, as soon as I told them what I want to do, they're like, no, we can't go out on the lake. There's, I found one company that said, hey, the lake's closed today, but if we go out there first thing tomorrow morning before they send out anything, because it might be closed tomorrow too, I'll get you out there. We just got to get out in the water before they send out notifications that we can't go out there. So we go out on this boat, and I'm like, I don't know why the lake is closed. It seems pretty pleasant. But as soon as we kind of got away from the shore, all of a sudden for being a lake, I was surprised how rough it was. It was like 40 degrees at that point. The water's just splashing all over us. And I was like, wow, this is probably not the best idea. I bought a sweatshirt because it was August. I didn't even bring a jacket or anything. I brought a sweatshirt from the gift shop at the marina, like right before I went out. So that's why I'm wearing like a Lake Tahoe sweatshirt in that video. God, I just had bought it like 10 minutes prior.
That was such an interesting series of videos that you did going to the four corners of California, and I saw that you did very successful with those. Especially what was it? There was a one episode where you had the Border Patrol or something come up on you. You were checking out the fence.
Yeah, that one. We got down to the southeast corner of California where it borders Arizona, and the Colorado River goes through there. So there's a break in the border fence. And as we were walking over there, I got to the corner. I could see Border Patrol across the river, and I started filming it. And about a minute later, like 4 Border Patrol cars just show up, and they're like, trying to figure out what we're doing. And like, I explained to the guy, they seemed kind of weirded out, like, what? You're doing what? And then I explained to them, I said, yeah, we're just filming this thing. And they're like, okay, just don't get too much, don't go closer to the river because we don't want you to fall in, is basically what they said. Like I think they realized pretty quickly that we weren't smuggling things over. I didn't bring my drone with me to that or anything. They're like, but they were like, how did you get over here? Because there's another like river or the like a canal in between there and the thing. We crossed an old abandoned lock to get across to it. And they were like, how did you get over here? And I said, oh, we crossed the lock. And they're like, what? Like it was 110 degrees too.
Wow.
There. So I think they were more surprised than anything. But yeah, the amount of Border Patrol that showed up that fast, I imagine there was nothing else going on that day. So.
And now they probably put a new fence over the top of the lock or something so people can't.
Yeah. Well, when we walked by the lock, I noticed that there was like a sensor there. And when I walked by it, I told my wife, I said, I think we just walked by some sort of sensor that probably just went off.
So what's neat is, your tour to Southwest. I just saw that I follow you on social media, and you were just in Europe as well.
Yeah.
So
we were just in London. We kind of took a family trip. As I mentioned earlier, every summer my dad would take us on a family trip, and he unfortunately passed away at Christmas last year.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you. And we wanted to kind of continue that tradition, so we brought my stepmom and we went on a trip to London.
Okay. And being a history lover, what kind of shenanigans did you find out in London?
Yeah, well, there's so much. It's like an overload there. The British Museum, we spent a day there, and there is just so much to see. I'm always, one of the things that kind of fascinated me are the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and they actually have in there artifacts from the mausoleum at Halicarnassus.
Oh, wow.
And I had no idea that was there, and we kind of go into that room and I see that and I'm just like, I can't believe like we're seeing something from the 7 wonders of the world like right here. Of course they probably stole it. I mean, everything in there is stolen from what I know, but yeah, just getting to look around there I think is amazing. It's kind of difficult because it's our whole family, so I couldn't go to everything I wanted to go because I have to we have to kind of split it up into things that different people want to see. So unfortunately I didn't get to see like the inside the Tower of London or anything like that, which I would have liked to done.
Yeah, we were just in London last year, and I went to the Cliffs of Dover, which was really cool. My step grandfather, God rest his soul, was a fighter pilot in the Navy and during the Second World War. And he did not serve in Europe. He was in the Pacific area. But just even being there, it's kind of an emotional thing. Like you can visually see France, on a clear day, And you see these planes and stuff that are parked there at the museum, different types of planes, and the plaques with everybody that ran a sortie. And I couldn't help think of my step grandfather. I was like, he was one of these guys just like these kids that was, 18, 19 years old. And to me, that was the thing that always grabbed me with history, is the personal stories. And in your episodes, you bring up a lot of personal stories of the people that were involved, that were affected, or, maybe have lost their lives or went on to bigger and better things. And I always found that interesting. But in your opinion, of all the videos you've done, who was the most interesting, eclectic type of person you've ever done a video on that you found, just fascinating?
Yeah, probably Mrs. Orcutt. She lived in, and fortunately, it's actually one of my best viewed videos too. But she lived right off Route 66 in Newberry Springs, and Newberry Springs is actually called Newberry Springs because of her. But she lived right off Route 66. They were building Interstate 40. It was going to cut right through her driveway the little road she took to hit Route 66. She threw such a big fit about them building Interstate 40 and cutting off her access to Route 66. Even wrote letters to the President of the United States about this. They had to come up with a solution. And so their choices were to build a bridge over Interstate 40. They tried to buy her property from her and she wouldn't sell. The choices were build a bridge over interstate connecting her back, or to build an exit just for her house, or connect her house to another exit. They ended up connecting her house to another exit. There's a 4-mile straight stretch of road just going from where her house was to the next exit. And Car and Driver magazine found that 4-mile stretch of road and said, hey, there's a 4-mile stretch of road. There's no highway patrol because it's just a street. There's no houses. Nothing is out there. We could test cars on that road. And so they started going out there and testing cars at 200 miles per hour. And she would come out with a shotgun trying to chase them off. And just her story of fighting the government to have this road built that cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars that they had to spend on this one lady's road. And then Car and Driver discovering it and testing it out. So in old Car and Driver magazines, all sorts of photos and everything are taken on this road. So it's kind of became a famous road. And she was such a character. She got her house declared a wildlife sanctuary at one point, and then she wanted to build a racetrack on it. And they questioned her about say, hey, we just declared your house a wildlife sanctuary. How does that fit with having a racetrack? And she said, well, the races are going to be on Sundays and the animals don't come around on Sundays.
I tell you, that's wow. I got to go back. I got to find that video. I've seen that one. That sounds interesting. So they would actually go out and just like basically drag race on this stretch.
They would speed test the cars on this stretch of road. And like when of course she would hear it and she'd get out there and chase them off with a shotgun eventually. But if you search her name, like there's an article in Car and Driver magazine about her too, about how they would chase her off and stuff, or she would chase them off.
I like the one episode where you do a lot on roads. A lot of your stuff is based on highways, which is really cool. Because the highways and byways, the American highway system is, got a lot of history behind it. And I like the one episode that you shot where you put your tires on some grooves in the street and it played like the Marine Corps hymn.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was so cool when it was named after like Arlie Ermy or something.
Yeah, that one's the Arlie Ermy Highway. Yeah, it plays the Marine Corps hymn.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to meet Arlie Ermy. When I lived in Pennsylvania, there was a air show called the Reading Air Show. It was all World War II aircraft and military vehicles. It was really cool. And my dad, who was in the Marine Corps in Vietnam, went to the show with me. And Arlie Ermy was standing there signing autographs at this tent. And I had just picked up a World War II campaign hat at one of the flea markets. And my dad got in line and he went up to Arlie Ermy, and Arlie Ermy says, well, do you have anything to sign? And my dad looks over and grabs this campaign hat and Arlie Ermy signs from the Gunny to Pee Wee. That was my dad's nickname. And it still hangs on my dad's office wall.
Oh, that's cool.
That's my little Arlie Ermy story. So, so where do you see yourself going into the future? Like, where do you see this channel, progressing, and what would you like to see more of, of what you do become bigger, or are you just happy where you're at, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm shocked that it's as big as it was. I never would have expected as many people are interested in the same thing that I'm interested in. So I don't know how much bigger it could get, 'cause I don't know what the I just don't know how many people are interested in this type of thing. I'm very happy with where it's at. And I mean, I appreciate everybody who watches every week. So as far as it getting bigger, I'm just happy where it's at. And if it gets bigger, then that's great too.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched your numbers grow, and some of your videos have millions of views, which is very, very impressive. And I've watched your numbers grow, and you should be really happy of the work you did. Now, was the travels that you do, do you map these out? How do you coordinate these? Because like you're going from one end of the country. I can't imagine you just jump in a car and go to Arizona for a day. You have to have a couple locations. How do you map this stuff out?
Yeah, usually I'll figure out where I'm going and figure out if there's several place. If I'm gonna go to like Arizona or something, I'll want to film multiple videos on there. I'm not gonna do a 5-hour drive usually for one video. But yeah, I'll try to figure out multiple things in that area. Usually there'll be a place that I really want to see and do a video on, and I have that idea, and then I'll try to figure out what else I could do in that area. A recent example is for the longest time, I really wanted to do a video about this soldier who was killed at the Battle of San Pasquale, and there was a mix-up, and they ended up burying a stove. They have for him, and I really wanted to do a video on this for the longest time, but I wasn't sure if it was true. And I ended up going up to Sacramento to the California State Library and finding an old newspaper from the 1840s and finding the article where they found his body in the stove shop. And I said, okay, I know for sure this is true now, because here's the story of them finding his body. They thought it was a murder at first. They didn't know why this body was in a stove box. And so once I was able to collaborate that, I said, okay, I have this video idea. I got to go to Ohio to film this, though. And so then it was, okay, what other videos can I film while I was in Ohio? And then that was kind of the next step, was figuring out what else was in that area that I would be able to do, and also would fit the general tone of the channel. I didn't want to fly to Ohio and do a video on the Cincinnati Reds or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're a Padres fan. You always wear the
yeah.
And by the way, beautiful stadium. I went there when they played the Phillies, because I'm a Phillies fan, and it was a couple of years ago they played the Phillies. Beautiful stadium. I love it. The outside's a little bit sketchy, the neighborhood, but the inside is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it depends on what side of it you go to, but yeah, if just going from like the trolley to the stadium, there's no issues. It's just kind of that one area when you get south of the stadium, it starts to get bad. It's just I don't know. They just need a little bit of cleanup in that area, probably.
I thought that the one video that you did with the soldiers in I guess it was the Civil War time frame, that was in Arizona. Having driven across the country myself, I live in Florida now. I'm originally from Philadelphia, but live in Florida now. And I drove to California. We talked a little bit about that. And, you don't realize how wide the country is. And when you see a battle or a skirmish take place in Arizona, you don't realize how far that is from the West Coast and how remote that is to hear about a Civil War battle in Arizona. And
Yeah.
that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely don't think of Arizona or even New Mexico as far as being Civil War hotbeds, but yeah, the Arizona was, or at least southern Arizona was, basically part of the Confederacy, and it's kind of a forgotten history of Arizona, but all the way up to the Colorado River, I mean, there was stuff going on, you know, between the Union and the Confederates.
Yeah, because I know that, out west, obviously California was a loyal state to the Union, and Arizona was Arizona territory, was considered part of the Confederacy. So when you get out to that west, they call that the Trans Mississippi West. That's what they call that theater of operations, and it's definitely a different bird than, say, somebody that fought in and around Richmond in 1864. It's really cool. And plus, I would imagine a lot of people went to California to escape that lifestyle, or that way of life that was happening in the East as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of surprisingly, there's a lot of Confederate named stuff in California because there were so many people that either during or after the Civil War that were part of the Confederacy or were sympathetic to the Confederacy had come to California to look for gold and uh, mining and everything else. And there's surprisingly a lot. The video that came out this week, part of it, I was in the Alabama Hills, and the Alabama Hills isn't named after Alabama, but it's named after a Confederate ship, the SS Alabama. The
Okay.
people in the area were sympathetic to the Confederacy. They were fans of the Alabama, who had, I can't remember exactly what it had just done, but it defeated a Union ship or something along those lines. They heard about it, and in celebration, they named this area after that thing. So it's still today the Alabama Hills, named after a Confederate ship. And there's places even in San Diego that are named after Stonewall Jackson. And it's just, there were so many people from, I mean, once the Civil War ended and their whole economy was upended, a lot of them came out here and they brought that their heritage with them.
So, and speaking of people from California, now there's a lot of famous people from California. I've been to unfortunately, I didn't make one, but I did go to another presidential libraries in California. I went to the Richard Nixon Presidential Library when I was out there, which was very interesting because he died when I was I think a senior in high school. And I was 48, yes, a senior in high school. And I went to his museum, which I always thought was interesting. But you also did something on a person that was from California that is, most people probably don't know who's from California, and that was George Patton, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. He had several, or they had the Desert Training Center was in California when they were preparing to go to Africa during World War II, and there's a Patton Museum kind of near where the headquarters was, but there's different camps all throughout the desert. At one point, it was the largest military base in the world because of how spread out it was over the deserts of California and Arizona.
That's interesting. So, like, World War II history is pretty big out in California, just from just the bases alone. But there was all sorts of stuff that went on. People were going in and out in San Diego, where you're at, big military base. But what would you say would be the most interesting World War II story that you've come across in your travels and doing this channel?
See, I haven't covered as much World War II stuff as I would like to have, just because a lot of that stuff's still not accessible. But as far as San Diego goes, there were bunkers all over the place, and I haven't been out there yet, so there's no video on it, but there is a mountain that has bunkers on it that they had people stationed there during World War II, kind of wanting to protect it and to overlook Mexico, worried that something might come across from Mexico. But if you're up there, if somebody's coming across, there's no way you'd ever see them. But just the fact that there was that much paranoia and everything to station people on a mountain to kind of look over Mexico, it's just it's such a different time to think about. You had to be worried about all these different things, and the money that was spent probably to station people up there. As far as stuff I did on the channel, I did the Johnson Railroad Tunnel that's very remote in the middle of nowhere in Arizona. We hiked out to it. The tunnel is still there. It's beautifully constructed. It looks like something that you would see in a movie. There's no more railroad track, but there on top of the tunnel there was a same thing. They had a machine gun set so that they could guard the tunnel from any saboteurs during World War II. I guess worried that, Germans or Japanese would come, 30 miles from the nearest town out in the middle of nowhere and take out this railroad tunnel. But so they had somebody stationed there. And I just can't imagine being out there alone, with coyotes and wolves running around and everything else. Like once in a while a train would come by and that's your only company for days on end. But yeah, just all this, just the stuff associated with World War II, how it was such a total war that they had to have people watching a railroad tunnel out in the middle of nowhere. It's wild to me.
Yeah, and I saw that one, and I remember reading about this years and years ago, but you did something about the only civilian casualty in the United States during World War II was like a balloon or something like that?
Yeah. It was the Japanese had a program where they would send balloons up and just hoping the winds would take it over to the United States. Their main goal, I think, was to start forest fires, to take away our resources, to fight all these forest fires. And this family just happened to be having a picnic. It didn't land on them. It had already landed, but it didn't explode. And they came across it, and I guess one of them touched it and set it off, killing the whole family.
Wow. Yeah, I remember reading a story about that years ago about this, and it was actually a story about an airborne regiment. Because ironic, you were an airborne, the Triple Nickels or something. They went in and they put the forest fires out, and that's where I had heard about this. I don't think that particular explosion caused a fire; it just some fatalities. But that's where I had heard about it. And I always thought that was interesting because when we think of World War II, we think of Europe or we think of some island in the Pacific. Maybe Pearl Harbor being the closest in the United States, but it's interesting how big the war effort was and how people, were so involved on so many levels.
Yeah, my great grandfather lived in Astoria, Oregon, and they have up near there is one of the only places that were attacked during World War II by a Japanese. I believe it was a submarine came up and kind of shelled them. And prior to World War II, they actually had a visiting Japanese delegation, and they gave them a kind of a tour of the base, and they showed them. They said, "Oh yeah, here's our artillery," but for some reason they showed them that the artillery didn't go to a certain angle, and so the sub was able to go right to that angle and shell them from there. And unfortunately, I don't think there's anything left though to show any damage. Ironically enough, the only place I believe in the continuous United States that has damage from World War II is the London Bridge in Arizona that was damaged in London by the Germans. It's here in the United States now, and you can see scars from it being attacked, but I don't think there's any other place aside from those few trees up where the balloon bomb went off.
Yeah, wow. I never ever thought about that because you hear about the Aleutian Islands, you hear about, the Japanese invaded them, and there's various bunkers and rusted out equipment up there, but I never really even thought about that there would be no, well, I guess outside of those handful of things, there's really not a whole heck of a lot that happened.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, so stepping away from the warfare and the depressing stuff, ghost towns out west. Do you spend any time in those?
Yeah, that's I try to spread it out a little bit, but we definitely visit a lot of ghost towns. There's so many. I mean, so many mining camps popped up, and a town would spring up around them, and the mines would go dry, and the town would disappear. Yeah, but the buildings are left behind.
So what do you find interesting? I mean, like to me, with a ghost town, if I'm going to a ghost town, it's the fact you can walk in and there's a bowl sitting there on the table from somebody that left it there in like 1903 and they left. And
Mhm.
and maybe you might, obviously there's no money, but there might be some old poker chips or something laying around and stuff like that. Is that type of stuff always interested me. I always thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just amazing some of the stuff that is left behind in some of these places. You would think they obviously moved out, and they just didn't either want to or didn't have the ability to take some of this stuff. We were in Bodie a couple weeks ago, which is probably the best preserved ghost town around. Um, and you walk into the thing, and there's wallpaper on the wall. The beds are still in there. There's still dishes laying around, and you think somebody had a life here. I mean, people built this house. They lived in it. It was a nice house for the time. And when they left, they just none of this stuff they thought to bring with them. They were just like, we need to get out of here as fast as possible. Just let's leave all this stuff behind. We can buy a new bed elsewhere. We can, buy new dishes, and just it's crazy that to think that there's a town with 10,000 people that could just disappear.
Yeah, but having been, I just got back from Rome about 3 weeks ago. We went on a family trip, and having been there, and I learned something interesting about Pompeii, which is I think maybe a little like a ghost town. I don't know. It's tough. That when that volcano erupted, all those buildings were buried for hundreds and hundreds of years. It wasn't until
Mhm.
like 17 something or 1780, or I maybe have the date off, that they started to find these Pompeii and they found all the stuff in it. And to this day, they're still excavating part of it. And
Mhm.
that's like 300 years. So, sometimes you think, well, maybe these ghost towns are like our version of Pompeii, except they're not buried under 18 feet of volcanic soot. But, it's when you find a little table or a chair or, a baby pacifier, it's just, to me, it's kind of cool stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
got to go to Pompeii a couple years ago as well, and I was amazed by just seeing like the paintings on the wall still. And just it definitely. I don't think our ghost towns here are going to hold up like that.
no,
For
no.
sure.
So you went to Italy then? Did you just get the chance to go to Rome and all that good stuff? Or?
Yeah, yeah. We were in Rome. I did a video on the Appian Way while I was there. And that was the only video we did, but we took a tour to Pompeii while we were there.
The Colosseum really, I don't know. It was different than what I thought it was going to be. Well, first of all, you had a million panhandlers outside trying to sell you a
Yeah.
bottle of water, and not trying to sound negative, but they get a little pushy. But the Colosseum was a little like I expected it, but not 100%. Maybe Hollywood influenced me. What was your take on the Colosseum?
It was definitely had a lot of people in it, that's for sure. I I came away surprised that they let as many people into some of these places at one time that they do. There, the Vatican. But yeah, same thing. I mean, I guess if we were there at the time, maybe it would have looked a lot different. But you do have this vision in your head from watching Gladiator or the
Yeah,
different
right.
movies, and then you go in there and it doesn't quite match up. But it's interesting to think of how they would have, how it would have looked at the time for sure.
So, would you ever consider maybe like, doing something in the Orient, like Japan or Korea or something like that?
Yeah, I filmed a video in Japan, and I did not. I'm sure you're aware of this, but the different electric currents in different places, different parts
Yeah,
of the
the
world,
plugs.
kind of mess with, yeah, kind of mess with the cameras. Japan is actually split, where one half of it is kind of on the same current that we are, and the other half of it is on a like kind of the European current. And I did not switch my camera frame rates. So everything we filmed, every street light just blinking and every footage. And of course, we're in Tokyo. There's lights everywhere. So when I looked at the footage after getting back, there's just blinking lights in every shot. I was like, oh man, we're gonna give people seizures if we put this video out there. So I actually ended up having to scrap that video just because of not changing the frame rates. Had because we were in Osaka, and Osaka is the same frequency as us, so the cameras worked fine. It just we needed to change the frame rate when we got to Tokyo, and we didn't.
So what was Japan like? I've always been interested in going to Japan. What's it like? It just sounds so cool to go.
Yeah, it's actually, I think it's my favorite destination or my favorite country to go to outside the United States. There's just so much to see. It's so easy to get around. It's so safe that you never feel in danger anywhere. Like you don't feel like you're walking through the bad part of town at any point, when you're walking around. Um, but there's just so much history there too. I mean, and it's so different than Western history that it's just completely fascinating to walk around. But you could be in Tokyo, the biggest city in the world. You turn a corner, you're all of a sudden you're in a shrine, and it's deadly silent there. It's just quiet, and you don't hear anybody around. And you're like, wow, a minute ago, there was 1,000 people, and now here I am, and there's nobody around, and it's just peaceful.
Wow. And what's the food like? I've heard so much about like we don't know how good that is. Like when they say they make Japanese food in the United States, I heard it's nothing like the stuff you get there.
Yeah, it's the food is great. I love Japanese food. Yeah, it's great. There's a couple chains that they have in Japan that they have here. One's called Pepper Lunch. Here you go. It's a steak place that gives you it's like a metal plate, so the food's still cooking while they give it to you, and you kind of stir it around. Here, for the three of us, it costs like $70-$80 to go to Pepper Lunch.
Wow.
In Japan, the same place, it was like less than $20 for all three of us to eat. So it's just, and the exchange rate is great as far as for being a discount location. I know Japan used to be seen as a really expensive place, but we never spent, aside from trying Kobe beef one day, we never spent more than, I don't know, $30 for like the three of us to eat at any place. So
you ever plan to go back to Japan and check it out again? Shoot some video?
Oh yeah. I've actually been 3 times now. But I would love to go back. They have a snow festival in the northern part of Japan every year, and I've always wanted to see that. So maybe next time that'll be what we go to. But I also don't like the snow that much. I don't like to be cold, so it's kind of competing against each other there.
I feel you. That's why I moved to Florida from Philadelphia. I get tired of the snow, and yeah, no more.
Yeah.
But do you find it when you go to Japan, is there, for say, like I'm a history lover, I want to go there. Is there a language barrier? I mean, obviously they speak Japanese, but is there, does a lot of people speak English, or is there a way to communicate, or is it difficult?
Yeah. Pretty much every place you go, the signs will be in English and Japanese. If you go into a museum or something, they'll have everything in English as well. It's the train stations, everything, they have English everywhere. It's really easy to get around, especially like in Tokyo.
The public transportation system is pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
you
cool.
can pretty much get anywhere with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Being in London, the tube was like a godsend. It wasn't like any other subway I saw. So imagine the Japanese are very efficient. Their system must have been 10 times better.
Yeah. I can, since we were just in London and Japan this year, I could compare it. And London's probably the second best of any that I've seen. But yeah, Japan blows it away. They're just, you can just get pretty much anywhere on the Japanese. Like there's never more than like a, half mile of walking, no matter where you want to go. So,
Wow. So what episodes do we have looking forward to coming out in the future, or do you want to keep that kind of hush hush?
no, I don't mind saying, the one that came out this week was Highway 395 through the Eastern Sierra. We actually drove the complete Highway 395 all the way up to the Canadian border. So I decided that I would I'd break it into 5 parts for each state that the highway goes through. So the first one was the Highway 395 through the Eastern Sierra. I shouldn't have done it. I went overboard. That video came out and was almost an hour and 40 minutes long. So none of the other ones will be that long, I promise. But the next one will be Highway 395 through Nevada, then Northern California, Oregon, then Washington.
And then you'll just stop at the border. You're not going to go up into Canada, or you didn't go up.
Yeah, we didn't cross. I didn't feel like having to wait through the customs and everything going both ways. I think the road only continues for about 10 miles once you cross the border, and there's nothing there. It's just in Canada, and I didn't feel like having to go through customs both times to deal with that.
So the place that you went, we were talking about Ohio a little bit. I wanted to ask you this earlier, and it completely slipped my mind. The place you went in Ohio, when you were talking about the guy that was buried in the stove, you went to an ancient Indian or Native American place. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I'm always intrigued, because with history, we look at history as just, the Americans or the colonies before, but we don't look into that Native American history and stuff like that.
Yeah, I went to Fort Ancient, which they actually named Native American culture after this place, the Fort Ancient culture. But then it turned out that the place predated them. The Fort Ancient culture had nothing to do with the place Fort Ancient. So they're named after a place they had nothing to do with. But it's in Indian mounds they kind of built on top of a hilltop, and over 3 miles. There's spaces every so often. So they've kind of determined that it wasn't used for fortification. It was probably ceremonial, because there would have been no way they could have defended this place. And there's just mounds throughout it. They think that they were used to kind of direct people, kind of maybe in like a pilgrimage. But that's the thing, is like nobody really knows for sure, because it's so long ago. But they were about nearly 2,000 years old. This was built, and I was worried about it, thinking, oh, what are we going to see? But when you get there, you can definitely see these mounds just everywhere. And you're like, wow, this is crazy. Just the amount of effort and work that it would have taken to build all these mounds, especially when you imagine that culture at the time probably had to spend a lot of their energy and resources on just surviving, hunting, gathering. I'm not sure that they were growing crops at that point, but they were able to take time out of trying to survive to build this place.
Yeah, and what's interesting is being in Ohio, the conservation of it, because conserving that stuff wasn't a thing 150 years ago. People would just bulldoze and build a house, and it managed to outlive a lot of that. Was it all intact, or had urban sprawl or growth got into any part of it that you were aware of?
Yeah, there's a road going through it, like a highway going right through it. So part of it is cut off, but for the most part, it was intact.
Wow. So now I got to ask, because this is the ultimate question that I get asked all the time on these shows, especially with people that go to historical places. Most haunted place, Steve. We got to know. You ghost stories, haunted locations. Our fans love hearing about that stuff.
I haven't seen any ghosts. I don't personally believe in them. We went to Clayton, New Mexico, which is supposed to be the most haunted town in New Mexico. I kind of made a joke about when we were we went there because we were going to where New Mexico, Texas, and Oklahoma meet, like the three corners, and it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And we told the lady at the Clayton Historical Society and and she was like, "What? Why would you go out there?" And I made a joke on the video saying, "Oh yeah, this lady believes in ghosts, but she thinks we're crazy for going to this thing." But in that video, there's like a bunch of people have commented on it. It's probably just a lens flare, but there's like some sort of thing floating in the screen at one point in this place that's supposedly the most haunted place in New Mexico. So maybe there's a guy that they hung in this town that's supposedly haunting it, and a bunch of other people are haunting different places there. So I would say it would have to be there.
So there was like an execution? Was the guy like a criminal, or was he like a cattle thief or something like that? Or
yeah, and they hung him. And his head popped off when they hung him. And in the museum, there is a picture of this decapitated guy, like blown up, taking up like a whole wall of this thing. And you turn the corner and like you don't have a chance to not look at this picture. It's like it's kind of just sprung on you when you walk around. It's like, oh, there's a decapitated guy right there, and the actual photo of it. So
yeah, I like that. We get a lot of our guests ask about ghost stories, especially for people like yourself that go to historical sites. I would say the closest I ever came to, and it's not even a spectrum, I know it wasn't, is when I was about 13 or 14, we went to Gettysburg. And again, I was about an hour and a half from my house, and I could smell black powder. Now, that's not to say that there was ghosts running around shooting black powder. There might have been some Civil War reenactors or somebody that, was doing the demonstration. But I would say that was probably the closest I came. Have you ever been to Gettysburg?
Yes, I went as a kid. I haven't been in, I don't know, 30 plus years, but yeah, I did go as a kid.
It's definitely, I think, a pilgrimage for most Americans. Should take a trip to Gettysburg at least once in their life. You don't realize how big it is until you get there.
Yeah, they a lot of sites that I've wanted to go to. Now I have the opportunity. For a while, the National Park Service had kind of banned people from filming at national park properties, and so there was like a few year period where you just kind of had to avoid doing any sort of video, but they've reversed that and now you can again. So I'm hoping to get to a few more places that I've pushed off because of it.
So Steve, again, for the fans, if they want to go out and check you out, see what your show is, if somebody hasn't seen you before, where can they find you?
Yeah, YouTube, Sidetrack Adventures, or you can go to sidetrackadventures.com. There's a big link right at the top. The website rarely gets updated, but yeah, Sidetrack Adventures on YouTube is the main place where we post.
So the last question I got for you today, and this one always, most of the people, get to the heart with this one, and but if you could talk to a younger Steve and talk to him about the adventures and travels and things that he is going to go on, what would you tell him?
I would tell him that he's in for a good time. I mean, luckily I, met my wife over 20 years ago, and yeah, that he's just gonna get lucky, meet the perfect woman, and just have a good time.
And if you had to say something,
I wouldn't want to give him too many spoilers. So
yeah, we don't want to do that because then we'll mess it up.
Yeah.
We all have stories from the Army, trust me. But now, if you wanted to say something to your fans and about getting out and traveling, what would be one thing you would tell them?
I would say do it. If you have the ability to go out and see this stuff, you want to go out and see it now. You never know what's going to happen. Tomorrow or the next day. Some of this stuff might not be here, and see it while you can.
So I'd like to thank Steve from Sidetrack Adventures. Go out and check out his show, Sidetrack Adventures, and go to YouTube and subscribe. I know I watch every Wednesday, like I said at the beginning of the show. Some people go to church. I go to Sidetrack Adventures and watch Steve and his dad jokes, and it just feels like I'm riding in the car with a friend. And Steve, we'd like to thank you for being on the show today.
No, thank you for having me. I had a great time.
And if you like what you saw, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and click that notification bell. We're on Rumble, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, TikTok, Odyssey. We're all over the social media platforms. You name it, we're probably on it. Just go on there and look for the Cling Connection. And until next time, have fun storming the castle.
Yo.